We are officially recording. So thank you all so much for taking some time out of your Thursday to be here with us to discuss mindfulness techniques specifically for survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. My name is Brennison Wheeler. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator at Women's Advocates.
And my name is Saran Cryer. I'm the mental health therapist at Women's Advocates. My pronouns are she and her.
Perfect. And you all can continue to introduce yourselves in the chat. It's really wonderful, the community that can come from these webinars. So we'd love to know your names and what you do. And there'll be lots of opportunities for participation and engagement throughout this workshop. Just another reminder, we will send all of the resources, all of the PowerPoints, and also a link to the recording of this webinar at the end. So you'll receive that via email. You also have an option to get a certificate of attendance, and we'll send instructions for how to request that at the end as well. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to send it in the Q&A or in the chat, and we'll be sure to try to get to those if we have time. So without further ado, we will continue and officially start the webinar. So this is a brief overview of some of the topics that we'll be covering in the next 90 minutes. So again, if you have any questions throughout, feel free. We want it to be as relevant and helpful for you and the work that you do with others and in your own personal life as well. So to start, Saran and I already introduced ourselves, but we wanted to provide a little bit more context about our experience with the topic of mindfulness and different avenues of how we've learned about that. So Saran, if you'd like to go first.
Sure. I have taken the 16 hours of fundamental mindfulness training from the mindfulness schools. And it was a unique training, and it really helped me to understand how mindfulness really works in calming the body and focusing intentionally on the present moment. And I have used these skills to help people that I work with. And I use it every day. I am pretty much focused on what I'm doing mindfully and try to have a mindfulness frame of mind when I'm working, when I'm relaxing, when there's a conflict happening, is how do I maintain my body? So, and 3 years I have been practicing mindfulness, and it's just been wonderful work. I have seen the great impact it has on the women that I work with and children. It is really soothing, and it's work that I will continue to extend in my work and my well being. So, yes, mindfulness has been a tremendous experience, not only for myself, but for the people that I work with and for.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Saran, for sharing that. For me, I'm a certified 235-hour yoga teacher from the Devanati School of Yoga and Wellness. So we learned a lot about meditation, mindfulness, and some different perspectives about what the heart of mindfulness is, which we'll get into later, so I won't spend too much time now talking about that. I also received my 30-hour trauma-informed yoga certification. And so that allowed us to learn more about how we can think about mindfulness, meditation, yoga, kind of those different mind and body connections in a way that is trauma informed, and consider different populations who have had other experiences that might help us kind of tailor it to their experience. At the University of Minnesota, I also took a mindfulness-based stress reduction course, which was a semester-long course with a lot of different activities and practices to learn more about that specific kind of training model. And so a lot of that will be peppered throughout the presentation as well. So we're going to do a quick poll here just to learn a little more about your role in the community. So feel free to click the ones that best describes your community. All right, I'll give a few more seconds for this. All right, so I'll end it in just a few seconds here. Okay. So it appears that we have predominantly domestic violence advocates, 55%, and then a few in the other categories as well: mental health related advocates, educators, students, social service providers, and then also people who have chosen to identify themselves as survivors of domestic and or sexual violence. So I'm going to stop sharing those results. Thank you so much for participating in that. It can help us know a little bit more about you all and what would be most relevant moving forward. So a little bit more on how trauma impacts the mind and body. So we want to kind of have a few statements before we launch into this section. So one thing that I'll add is that there's a lot of different common reactions to experiencing trauma, whether that's in the moment or after the experience. So those can include things like hyperarousal, constriction or avoidance, dissociation, freezing, immobility. And a lot of these things are done in the name of self-protection. Of sometimes it's the body's automatic response. Sometimes we do it without even knowing. It's sometimes not intentional. It's an automatic thing of when something traumatic has happened, something that reminds us of that trauma may cause us to be hyper aware of our surroundings, be hyper aroused if someone comes up behind us and touches our back. We may dissociate from our bodies, dissociate our mind from our bodies, dissociate from certain parts of our bodies. And that there are that's actually been depicted in some popular movies and shows of some people not being able to, like, their brain isn't connecting to other parts of their body. So sometimes they won't be able to move their legs or their arms, and that is a very real response to experiencing trauma. Another thing that I want to mention is trauma triggers. So there's different things, whether that's sounds, smells, colors, movements, significant life events. Those can act as triggers for people who have experienced things related to a traumatic event. And so I want to be mindful of that as we're talking about mindfulness in the present moment, and paying attention to our different senses, that when we do that, some people may experience trauma triggers during that too. And then with this all in mind, a reminder that the survivor is the expert of their own experience, right? So we don't want to go in assuming that something will trigger them if they haven't told us that they would, or that this wouldn't be a good fit for them, or it would. We definitely want to kind of use all this information that we're going to talk about in the webinar as an option, right? These are choices that they can decide to engage in at any point in time if they believe it could be helpful for them. And then a few other things I'll mention too is, flashbacks, intrusive thoughts, emotional intensity. Those are some things that can arise during practicing mindfulness, or it can be things that can initiate someone wanting to engage in a mindfulness practice. So we definitely recommend practicing mindfulness techniques with the support of a mental health professional if possible. That can be a really supportive mechanism for navigating the different aspects of mindfulness. And then another thing too is really tying how trauma impacts the body of these physiological responses. So some people may carry their stress or tension or worry in their shoulders or in their back or their neck or their jaw. So that's something to be aware of as well. And that every survivor has a different relationship with their mind and their body. So that's something to take into account. If you're interested in learning more about the brain, we do have an entire webinar about the brain on trauma. And so that is linked on the slide, so you can watch that anytime as well. So now I'm going to pass it on to Saran to talk about a few more things that connect to the mind and the body in this way.
So when we look at the stress that happens daily, we are in a time where mental stress is so relevant in our daily lives. Research has shown that multitasking can increase the negative emotions, causing a person to feel irritable and leading to chronic stress. And also, searching on social media, it ties into studies linking to a strong and heaviness between social media and the increase for depression, anxiety, loneliness, and even self harm. This is when people are searching the social media, trying to find things to soothe themselves or just to be involved, to develop some type of relationship. So the negativity that they experience in social media, it brings on incompetency in their lives, and it also makes them feel inadequacy about their appearance or just their whole well-being. Managing household finances is challenging. Being that so many people have lost employment, it's hard to maintain financial stability in the household and to handle all of this and trying to do it in a way that's productive in the household. So, mental stress really lies upon us pretty heavily. Supporting children's basic needs so they can thrive as productive citizens in society is one of the things that's pretty hard in the time that we're living. Giving them the care, the love, and nourishment that they need for living, and trying to handle all of these other things in our life is truly hard. When we look at maintaining relationships and grief and loss, I put those two together in a way that grief and loss could look so many different ways. When we are in a state of grief, and especially now, relationships have really taken a toll. We have a loss in we have intimate partner violence in our relationships. We have people divorcing, separating. It's just a hardship, even though they may love this person and want to be with this person. It's that loss because of the violence, because of the state that we're in now. And it takes such a toll. And since COVID-19, when we think of grief and loss, we have loved ones or friends that we know who have been hospitalized and we're unable to visit them. We have loved ones and friends who have died lonely without their immediate family members or spouses with them. So we are just our loved ones dying in hospitals. We have broken relationships, and the mental stress just clutters the mind and weighs down the body. And when we look at the next slide, it talks about how we calm our body, how we view body energy. So we take on all of this stress, all of this heaviness that's in our bodies, and we just wonder, what are we going to do with all of the stress? So what I would like for you to do is to write in the chat, what are things that can get in the way of calming the mind as we view the picture here. Okay, so just feel free to write in the chat ways that you have tried, or maybe now just calming your mind. When we look at the picture, when our mind is full, it is full of so many different thoughts, and we can't even focus properly on what's happening. It's constantly thinking, and thoughts are racing, trying to keep up with so much stuff or just the clutter.
I'm seeing in the
And I, okay.
hunger, anxiety, and ruminating thoughts, worry about the
Mhm.
past and future, finances, kids, schooling, work, and relationship stress can get in the way, racing thoughts, having too many things to do in a short period of time, things we can't control, unpredictability, feeling anxious, thinking of all the things you need to get done, having a cluttered space. overwhelming information as the pandemic develops, sleeplessness, worries, concerns, unusual life events.
It's a lot. And we're holding this in our bodies. And while it's inside of our bodies, something's happening to us within our own system. The sensations that we feel may be sensations of anger, irritability, sadness. And it puts us in a state of our minds being so full that it's hard to even share gentleness with our children, with our significant others, with others in our environment, because we're carrying so much that it's just too heavy for our bodies. Looking at the picture of mindful, the body is at a state of calm and thoughts are flowing easily. This is a state that we want to be in, and it's being mindful of what is it that your body needs to empty this clutter and to take time to focus on your own well-being. My body is asking for something because it feels overloaded and I need to just change this lifestyle. So we think about calming the body. So when we look at the next slide, calming the mind and the body. So the next slide, we have calming the mind and the body. Thank you. When practicing mindfulness meditation, the vagus nerve releases a chemical called acetylcholine, which sends a feeling of calmness throughout the nervous system. The vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the brain. It It is often called the wandering nerve. If you look at the picture, you would see, because it connects the brain to the body and carries sensory information from the internal organs back to the brain. So it's really important to calm the vagus nerve. Other techniques to calm the vagus nerve is expressing gratitude. Gratitude could come in a form of many ways. Is sending a letter to someone thanking them for how they have engaged in your life, or just waking up in the morning and saying, you know what? I just feel good this morning. I am truly thankful for this day. And carrying those feelings in your body has a way of calming the vagus nerve. And then it just stimulates throughout your whole body. Practicing the yoga, really allowing yourself to exercise in a way to where you're paying attention to body movement. Reading inspirational quotes and affirmations is an excellent way to feed into the body good things, positive things, reassuring things, and keeping them focused in your mind and keeping them up front in your life. Daily exercising are also healing powers for the vagus nerve. So just keep in mind, having these wonderful skills and techniques to calm the body really helps with soothing, really helps with releasing some of the trauma that many of us are experiencing.
All
So
right.
if there's any other techniques that you have that you could use, just feel free to put those in the chat. What has been helpful for you to calm your body?
Yeah, there's two prompts that we kind of said on the screen. It says, how can trauma show up in the body? But you can also
Yep.
answer the question of what can you do? Some people are saying coloring, hiking, listening to music, candles,
Deep breathing.
expressive arts,
Mhm.
walking, dancing, muscle. Oh, okay, yeah. Muscle tension, that's how it can show up. Cooking and reading affirmations, spending time outside and petting animals, taking baths, laughing with loved ones, connecting, I kind of like these two together because you
Yeah,
can see how people say trauma shows up in
right.
their bodies, and then also how they kind of help address that.
I seen
Or
candles. I love candles. So you want to think of what your body is asking you for. And you could say, well, I love smelling scents and I just love relaxing at home. I love reading a book, whatever it is. So many good ideas from the chat. And yes, let's practice every day these wonderful suggestions. Thank you.
yeah, a lot of these tap into what we'll talk about later of our sensory experiences of paying attention to our bodily sensations, and also, you know, tapping into our senses, whether that's aromatherapy, you know, a sense of smell,
Yeah.
and all these other things of how all of your senses are connected to your mind and your body, right? And so thank you for contributing to that.
Mhm.
Move on here. So what we keep saying this word mindfulness. What is that? And so we'll first start with just a poll to see, to gauge your familiarity with the practice of mindfulness. So you can select the one that you think best applies to you in this moment. So we can start to chat about how do we actually practice mindfulness. We may know what it is. Let's see. Okay, I'll give a few more seconds here. Predominantly, people are saying, I know a little bit about the practice of mindfulness. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll here. So you'll see, wow, there's 11 people who said they practice mindfulness every day. That's
That's,
excellent.
that's really, really good.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. You can see how your fellow attendees responded. So I'm gonna stop sharing those results. So one thing to kind of introduce us to the topic is this quote of mindfulness is the energy of being aware and awake to the present moment. It is the continuous practice of touching life deeply in every moment of daily life. To be mindful is to be truly alive, present, and at one with those around you and with what you are doing. We bring our body and mind into harmony when we wash dishes, drive the car, or take our morning shower. So again, we'll talk about it here of what it's not. So sometimes that quote can help to target some misconceptions about what people think mindfulness is. So when people envision mindfulness, maybe they think of someone sitting in a lotus pose on a cloud floating into the heavens, and that is the only way to be mindful. And so we'll start to address some of those misconceptions. It's not as you saw in the picture Saran was talking about earlier of the two different people's minds, where one was very cluttered, and it wasn't that the second one was completely blank and empty, right? There's just a little more organization, there's a little bit more calm. It's not that clear your mind. You know, sometimes you'll hear that and you'll respond to it as, how do you do that? Especially as a survivor, like you're in survival mode and you cannot have a clear mind because that can sometimes feel very scary. So it's not that you have an absence of thought, it's that you're able to acknowledge and hold those thoughts and also let go of the ones that aren't serving you. It's not about being complacent. So sometimes people associate acceptance with like, oh, I'm just going to resign myself to things that I wish that I could change, or that people are doing that is hurting me, or things like that. It's not about being complacent. It's also not religious. There's a way to bring mindfulness into your religion, but mindfulness itself inherently is not tied to one singular religion. It's also not a silver bullet. It's not a cure-all. It's not the panacea of all ails in the entire world. It's just another tool in your toolbox. And it's also not about being one particular way. It's not about, I have to be calm, otherwise I'm not practicing mindfulness. Similarly about stress reduction, it's not just to reduce stress. While a lot of people do experience reduced stress when they're practicing mindfulness, that's not what it's solely about. It's about being in the present moment, feeling connected to the things in your current physical space. Again, not just complete silence, sitting cross-legged, or ignoring reality or the things that you need to do. It's not ignorance is bliss. So a little more on what is it then if it's not those things. So some of the two tenets you'll see on here is that awareness and acceptance. So a simple definition of it is a state of non-judgment, of non-judgmental awareness of what's happening in the present moment, including the awareness of one's own thoughts, feelings, and senses. So you can start to write in the chat what mindfulness means to you. Maybe it means some of those things that were on the other slides. You thought mindfulness meant having a completely clear, silent mind. Um, and so our goal is to start to shift or maybe add on to your definition of what you think mindfulness is and start to see a way of incorporating it in your unique personal style into your life. Because we truly believe and we have so many resources. They're coming up. I'm so excited about them. And I'm sure there's at least one that maybe you can add to your arsenal.
Yes.
So looking at the chat, some people are saying um, being absorbed in the moment can be mindful, honoring my experience, whatever that may be. I love that one. Being alive. To me, mindfulness means being grounded and whole. Wholeness is a great word for that too, of feeling connected, being grounded and present in the now, centering myself, having a quiet mind. Right. And so quiet is different from silent, right? Like, because sometimes our minds and our thoughts can be so loud that it's blinding almost, right? Like you can't see, you can't focus on anything outside of that. Um, some people say they struggle with taking myself away from home and work. Mindfulness is unnumbing myself.
Yeah, that's
That
a really
is
good one.
very powerful, I think,
Mhm.
of when we talk about those senses of feeling. And a lot of sometimes dissociation and responses to trauma is you numb and you're like, I don't want to feel because everything hurts. Everything is so painful. And mindfulness can absolutely be a way to unnumb. That's kind of a hard word to say. Mind and peace, aware of the moment and what it represents. Um,
Yes, it's really finding your inner silence, your inner peace. And it's a beautiful experience. And the comments in the chat, all of the things that people mentioned, that's really what mindfulness is. It's finding your inner silence, your inner peace, and being in a state of awareness, knowing and feeling sensations, and just being aware of your surroundings. It's not just for yourself, it's for others as well. You may be in a room where someone is very upset or agitated or whatever, and you just breathe, take your time. And your calmness could really help the other person. Your energy just transforms right into that room to other people could feel it and want that energy, that positive energy. So you see, someone said a state of full awareness and connectedness. Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Wonderful. So applying that to how can mindfulness be used as a tool for survivors, right? Expanding our toolbox. So these are some general benefits of mindfulness that can absolutely apply to survivors as well. Some that stand out to me on this list can include, improved memory, focus, and mental processing. So if you did watch the Brain on Trauma webinar, you would have learned a little more about how memory functions for people who have experienced trauma. Often it's these snapshots of things. It's not like a cohesive narrative of this happened, and that happened. It was more so um, kind of snapshots in time that can come back as intrusive thoughts, can come back as flashbacks, and so it can help kind of improve those things of being able to be in that present moment. That can help you center on what's going on, what has happened, what is going on in the present moment, and also that reduced rumination. So that was something someone in the chat mentioned earlier of repeatedly going through a thought or a problem, and that is also very greatly tied to anxiety or anxious thoughts and or maybe even depressive thoughts as well. So it can help reduce that because when your mind is focused on what are these five things that I can see around me? What is the taste of my food? All when your brain is concentrating on those things, it's a little you're less inclined to be able to ruminate on those things that may have been, interrupting your ability to be in the present moment. Other things too, managing emotions, being in the here and now, decrease reactivity, increase awareness, increase capacity to be intentional. So those are some of the broad benefits of mindfulness. Um, and kind of applying it more to survivors. A lot of different skills, again, with the clarity of mind. And the thing that I like a lot is this increasing confidence that there's internal resources. So within us to be able to, whether that is to calm or to feel connected, either during or after a traumatic event, that is something that can be really powerful for survivors of what I need can be within inside me and I can tap into that anytime. That can be very comforting for people who have experienced trauma. And then again, there's an increased ability to think versus reacting. So maybe to things that aren't um, maybe your brain is perceiving it to be a threat, but when you introduce mindfulness, maybe you can take a step back and say, okay, what are the facts? What is the reality of what's going on in this present moment? Am I replacing this present moment with something similar that happened in the past that was really scary, or something that I'm really scared of happening in the future? So it can help center again back into that present moment. And this kind of talks a little more about the nervous system being being calmer more often with the practice of meditation and mindfulness, allowing for less activation of traumatic material. So that's the sources for all that are on the top left corner as well if you want to check those out. But I really like this quote as well, and I mentioned it earlier about the suppression, but in the face of emotional pain, a common human response is to withdraw, numb, distract, deny, or to otherwise suppress awareness. Yet, psychological avoidance may actually prolong or intensify psychological distress. Those who use drugs or alcohol dissociate, externalize through dysfunctional behavior, or suppress upsetting thoughts and memories, for example, are more likely than others to develop intrusive and chronic problems and symptoms. So that's just from a study that really tried to learn more about how mindfulness can benefit survivors. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick pause here. I'm noticing that there's some questions in the Q&A. So, Saran, if you want to look through those and pick out any that you feel called to answer now before we dive into more of the techniques.
Okay.
So, one of the first
Yeah,
questions
yeah,
is,
I see more comments. Let's see. A state of fullness awareness. Connect. I
no,
see.
Saran, the button, the Q&A button, there's, yeah. So there's a question.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah. It says, as someone who cried herself to sleep, what can I do to overcome the vast darkness of my mind that has taken over my life?
I would suggest breathing techniques before you go to bed. Just allow your body to breathe. So before you go to sleep, try to be in a place where it's comfortable, it's relaxing to you, and there's no fear of anything in the room or images that will distract you. And just sit in a comfortable place, even that if that's sitting on the floor, just sitting down. If you like candles, light a candle. If you like to hear a waterfall or whatever it is, soft music without words, relax your mind because the mind is distracted. It's continuously being active even when you're sleeping. So if you have thoughts before you go to sleep that aren't pleasant, you're sleeping with those thoughts. So allow yourself to sit in a chair or on the floor and just breathe. Just inhale and then exhale. And any distractions that come into your head, just give yourself permission to let them go. And we're going to practice mindfulness exercise, and I could help you to understand the distractions. And we have these distractions, and we even sleep with them. And I would just try that and relaxing your body before you go to sleep, thinking of words that are calming and that are pleasant. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Saran. I typed what you were saying in response to that as well.
Okay.
Okay, maybe we'll do one more before we move on. Do you want to pick one that is calling out to you, Saran?
Let's see. How can I grab my ego by its horns and stop it from taking over? That's really, really strong. So, what you want to do is to be kind to yourself and to let yourself know that I am in control of my body, my mind, my feelings, and my actions. And because of that, these are the things, this is the way that I will be in this moment. Allow yourself to release. Now, when our egos take over, there's something that's happening into our daily lives. Maybe we are in positions to where we have to be in control, maybe over a group of people, on the job or whatnot. There's a reason why our ego just wants to dive in and allow yourself. The good thing is that you recognize it and recognize it to the point of saying, my body needs to feel different. My ego needs to be in sync with my calmness, with my efforts to move forward in my life and my daily life when I wake up, and that I can receive others. This would be good to either start a gratitude journal or to think of ways in the mornings when you get up. Gratitude, it will calm the ego, and therefore the ego will walk in sync or be in sync with your body rather than pursuing before you're able to make a decision of what you want or if it's too aggressive or too assertive in situations. So calming yourself and saying, this is how I would like my body to respond. So it's important that you're satisfied with what's going on in your body. And I hope that was helpful.
Thank you, Saran. I responded to that. Okay, so we'll dive into a few more mindfulness techniques and we'll take more questions as we go along. But I want to make sure for those of us who are might be a little tight on time, they get at least some exposure to the different techniques that we'll be discussing. So you'll see an important reminder on the screen. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I wanted to reiterate that mindfulness may not be for every survivor. There have been some studies that have found that some specific mindfulness exercises may actually not be helpful. And so just another reminder that all of these resources and suggestions are intended to be adapted and changed, maybe even ignored, depending on the person. So you know yourself best, and these are all just tools to have in your toolbox. So if there's some and you would say that would make me really anxious, I don't want to do that, don't do it. So with that in mind, this is my favorite slide. These are links. I don't know if they're blank on the top right, but I'll fix that before I send out the PowerPoint. But all of these links have lots of very insightful information on these different topics of techniques, and we'll do a demonstration of three specific ones later. But we'll spend a decent amount of time on these different techniques, and you can add any questions in the chat or in the Q&A if you have any specific questions about these on the screen. But I did want to mention, we talked a lot about gratitude. I have, this is a journal, it's called the Happiness Project. It's 5 years worth, and it has a box for every day. And so you can actually go back and read what you were grateful for the year prior and the year before that as well. And so that's something that I've been trying to do more regularly. It can be less formal than that if you live with someone, your a roommate or a partner or a family member, you can say, oh, before we go to bed every night, let's just tell each other 3 things that we're grateful for. If you don't have people in your home, you can text it or call someone and ask them what are 3 things that they're grateful for too. Or you can just think it in your mind as you're brushing your teeth, or just make a practice of doing it every day, especially on the days when it's hard to think of things to be grateful for. That can be very helpful as well, and also help you remember what happened that day too. Instead of kind of going through the motions of each day, it's a great reminder of what you were grateful for during the day. And then mindful eating. So this is one that I'm trying to do more often. And the link on the screen is to Headspace. If you haven't heard of Headspace, it's an incredible organization, also an app. And they have a lot of information about mindful eating tips. One that I'm going to try out is actually eating with my non-dominant hand. So I'm right-handed, and I actually tried this for lunch before we did this. It was very difficult. I ate much slower, of course, than I usually would. I was like, how do I even hold a fork in this hand? And so that helped me be more present and kind of appreciate the textures of the food more, and how it was tasting, because I was eating a lot slower than I usually would. So that's one way of incorporating mindfulness when you're eating. You can also explore, new tastes, new textures, new flavors, maybe thinking to yourself, or if you are eating with someone, describing like what the texture is like, what the taste is like, what the senses are, maybe smelling your food before you take that first bite. I know sometimes I eat so fast if I'm eating during a lunch break or while I'm working, I didn't even taste my food. So I think that can be a really easy technique to do of how would I describe this to someone, of what it was like, what that experience was like to eat that. And I know some people really like to, watch shows or different things during it. And it's not to say never watch a show or do anything while you're eating, but maybe try one meal out of the week where you don't have any screens nearby, and you just see how it feels. Just experiment with it. And then we also have a link to a body scan. So that one's specifically trauma sensitive, because again, it can be kind of scary to draw attention to certain parts of the body that may have been hurt, harmed, or it's been scary to do that. So that specific body scan takes that into consideration. So that might be something that can be helpful to feel the entire body, and bring awareness to that. And then mindfulness walks, depending on where you are in the world, if it's cold or warm or whatever the temperature is, you might be going for walks. And there's really cool kind of information on how to be mindful as you're walking. So of course, noticing your surroundings. Maybe you go on the same path every day, you take a walk, but you weren't really doing it mindfully. And once you started to pay attention to the things that are around you, like for me, I didn't know that there was like a USPS mail drop box like so close to me, because I didn't even pay attention. I'm like, oh, I have to walk to this place. I'm not paying attention to what's around me. So I used to always go so far to drop mail off. And now that I actually paid attention on my walks, there's some place that's much closer. So it can actually be practical in that way too. But also just noticing, sometimes people count, like they count up 1, 2, 3, up to 10, and then they go back and count again, starting at 1, just kind of counting their steps. That can help. That's a practice. It can also be on naming the different things that you're seeing, like I spy with yourself or someone that you're with. There's also mindful affirmation. So we mentioned this earlier. If there's something that you want, maybe you don't fully believe it yet. Maybe you want to believe like I am worthy, and maybe that's it. I am worthy. Maybe you write I am worthy on a sticky note and you put it on your mirror, or you put it on your desk or somewhere where you'll see it every day. That can be really helpful to be exposed to those affirmations, and maybe say them out loud, maybe say them in your head, maybe you just read it. And over time, you might find that you start to believe it a little more. Or maybe it's just a reminder. So there's some examples of that. I'm pretty sure that link is to, there's an app that talks about that as well. Again, there's yoga or any other physical activity where you're doing things with intentionality. Grounding in nature. That's one Saran and I were talking about the other day that, again, depending on where you live, right now, I wouldn't go outside with bare feet in Minnesota. It's very cold. But if you are in a warmer place, if there's a beach nearby, there's been studies that have found like having the feet and the toes feel the sand and the ground and the dirt, or even being in water. So if there even is a pool, that can feel very grounding to be in that kind of environment, or a lake. So kind of not necessarily being one with nature, but just connecting the different parts of your body with that, maybe feeling, grabbing a chunk of sand and feeling it go through your fingers and just notice the sensations, notice where the different parts of the body may connect with things. So even if you do it in your home, noticing, okay, I feel the ground beneath my feet. It's a carpet. This is what the texture feels like. I feel the seat beneath my legs, and I feel a little bit of tension. Even just bringing some awareness can help feel grounding too. Mindful visualization. So that's one that I think is very powerful, especially for survivors. And it makes me think of Adrienne Marie Brown. She's actually having an event this weekend with Sonia Renee Taylor, who wrote The Body's Not an Apology. And Marie Brown talks about pleasure activism and has a book called Pleasure. I'll include this on the links too if you're curious. But a lot of that is visualizing a different future, right? And so one thing that I talked about with Kelly Sundberg a few months ago, who wrote the book Goodbye Sweet Girl, she talked about how the person who was abusing her would try to rob her of her imagination, right? Of her ability to think of a different future for herself, that he wanted her to believe that in this situation, the abuser was a he, but that this is as good as it gets. Like this is she has to resign herself to this, that and it helped for her to visualize that she had a different future. And so it doesn't have to necessarily be that way. It can just be visualizing a peaceful place. It can be visualizing the waves crashing against the sand. So there's different suggestions for that as well. But that's something that can be especially powerful for survivors, to be able to visualize and see themselves in a place where they are happy, respected, and connected. Another one is progressive muscle relaxation. Again, take that one with caution, but there's fun ones with kids, and we'll talk more about considerations for kids, but like pretend to be a robot and then relax and pretend to be jelly, like those can be really fun to actually feel the sensation. Sometimes just bringing awareness, like through a body scan, isn't as connected. Like you can really feel it if you squeeze your fists and then release them. That can be something that has been found to integrate more calm into the body and the nervous system as well. So that's progressive muscle relaxation, and there's audio to guide you through each of that. So they'll tell you exactly what to do. And then again, belly breathing. So that one does sound really like, oh, I breathe with my stomach all the time. But there is a very intentional way to do it. So you can do it seated, and we'll practice this in a little bit, so I'll talk about it more. But you can lie down with your legs straight, or with your knees bent and your feet on the ground, or with the soles of your feet together and your knees on the ground as you're laying down, any kind of position like that. And then you place one hand on your upper chest and then one hand underneath your rib cage. And then you breathe in through the nose, and then you breathe out through the mouth. And so that's the basic idea of it. And you're feeling the stomach and the abdominal region kind of expand and contract with each inhale and exhale. And you're kind of noticing the rise and fall as you're breathing. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later. There's one thing to do, and I'll demonstrate this. We're not going to do this for the demo because it's hard to follow along with, but I'll show you just if you want to practice it on your own. It's called the 5-finger breathing. And so this was actually done in a training that I attended the other day through the Minnesota Department of Health. So kudos to them for reminding me of this. But as you inhale, so you trace with your finger, And as you go up a finger, you inhale. And as you go down a finger, you exhale. So you inhale and exhale as you go down. Inhale and then exhale. Inhale and then exhale. And then you repeat, and you can do that as many times, but the goal is to at least get through one hand to go through 5 breaths. And so that can be a really useful tool to kind of trace. And it also helps with the physical sensations, like bringing awareness to your hand and also to your breath. So that can be a technique that you use as well. Sitting meditation, Saran will talk about that more. She'll lead you through a very short one in a moment here. And so there's a lot of different considerations for that. There's mountain meditation, which is, I'm going to read from here because I'm not an expert on this, but it says, become aware of the present moment by deliberately adopting an erect and dignified posture, whether sitting or standing, as though you are a mountain. A mountain is completely natural and at ease with itself, however strong the winds that batter it, however thick the dark clouds and that swirl around its peak. So like a mountain, let your mind be steady, knowing that all things pass. So that is like kind of the premise of the mountain meditation as well. Some people can feel very connected to it as a tool for resiliency. And then again, acceptance of thoughts and feelings, you can go to that link. There's a lot of different instructions for that. And so one example of that would to say, when you become aware of your bodily sensations and feelings, tension or other intense sensations in a particular part of your body, just notice them, acknowledge their presence, and see if you can make space for them. Don't try to hold on to them or make them go away. See if you can open your heart and make room for discomfort or tension or anxiety, just allowing them to be there. And so it kind of explores that as well, that acknowledgement. And then there's some more, I won't go through every single one, but I'll give some examples for mindful seeing that are cool. So, art in everyday life, noticing, the good is in the details, all those different things, and kind of finding different ways to incorporate that in your life. And there's something called contemplative photography. So that's something that you can engage in too if you want to kind of be very mindful of seeing. As far as mindful listening, there's this practice called HEAR. It's an acronym, HEAR. So the first letter H represents halt. So again, like halt wherever you are, offer your full attention. Enjoy your E, enjoy a breath as you choose to receive whatever is being communicated to you. A is ask yourself if you really know what they mean, or if you don't, ask for clarification. Instead of making assumptions, bring awareness and curiosity to the interaction. And then R is reflect. So reflect back to them what you heard, and that helps them know that you were really listening. So there's that. There's also mindful cooking. That's a really cool one as well. So you can look into that too. I've definitely heard more people have been cooking than usual during these times. And then you can't see these lists, but there's a bunch of lists on the top right corner in this box, and I'll make it darker so it's actually visible when I send out the PowerPoints. But that has even more techniques. So let me know if there's any questions. I can glance at the chat. Yes, the slides will be available. They will all be sent out. Abby shares, I take breaks at work, walk around the building. As I walk, I repeat in my head, I see the autumn leaves. While breathing in, I smile to the autumn leaves while breathing out. Aw, that's very nice. That's also, like engaging. I like that. Definitely trying those out. Oh, there's another one I wanted to share. There's in the chat, we do the best part and worst part of the day. We can continue gratefulness for the best and find something to be grateful for in the worst. Sometimes we forfeit a worst to have two bests. My 9-year-old loves this family tradition. Oh, yeah, definitely like those highs and lows, but integrating gratitude into that. I absolutely love that. Thank you. Thank you. And I see someone sent in a recommendation for a book with different mantras and things. So I'll include that in the PowerPoint as well. Great, thank you. Okay, so in the interest of time, we will continue on to some of these. Oh, sorry, I went back. to some demonstrations. So we'll walk through three and then we'll have some more considerations for survivors, more considerations for children. And we'll kind of close it out there and take more questions. But we wanted to make sure, since it's a workshop, we have some more experiential aspects. So Saran will start with this first practice.
So for this activity, please make adjustments based on your ability. So I just wanted to say that for people who could choose one that they are able to do. Okay. And so also I want to share with you beyond the five senses. If you are interested in practicing the beyond the five senses, because there's more senses, there is a link provided. Okay. Okay. So the purpose for the 5-4-3-2-1 technique is to intentionally take in details of your surroundings using your senses. Is to notice small details as sounds, it could be texture, smells that you would not normally recognize. So what we're going to do is go through this exercise. So let's begin. So I would like for you, and you could place these things in the chat. Once we're done, I just want to understand how this experience was for you. So if you want to just sit back in your chair and relax. And I want you to notice 5 things you can see. Just really paying attention in the room, sitting back and just looking in the room and just noticing, just being present in the present moment, noticing 5 things you could see. Notice 4 things you can feel. And remember, you're in doing this on purpose. I'm actually paying attention in the present moment. 3 things you can hear. Notice 3 things in the room that you're in that you can hear. And I just heard my phone. That you can hear. That you can hear. 3 things that you can hear. And then 2 things that you can smell. So just kind of relax and just notice any fragrances in the air. You may smell coffee, anything. Okay. And for the last one, notice 1 thing you can taste. 1 thing you could taste. And if you like to put any comments in the chat, how do you feel after you have experienced this exercise? Did you notice things that you would not normally notice? More connected, calmer. What is so calmer? Okay. Just noticing on purpose. Okay. It's great. This exercise caused me to stop and focus. Really be intentional about the activity. This is good. More alert. I'm surrounded by beauty. Oh, that's so beautiful. I love it. I feel like Bella from Twilight after she became a vampire. Okay? Okay.
We also have a poll I just launched secretly. So
okay.
I asked, would you do the 5 senses mindfulness practice again? And 85% said yes, they would.
Oh, great.
11% said maybe, 4% said nope.
Okay. It is a good exercise just to be grounded, and someone put grounded. Yeah. It
Mhm.
really just helps you to pay attention. And interestingly, it is good to do this in your life when you're at peace. Yes, it does give you a sense of peace. When you're with other people, it's just helpful just to notice what's happening in the rooms, the things that you see. And it's a good way to calm yourself if you're going somewhere and you just want to calm yourself before you enter a room or place. So yeah, and five senses are fun. Yes, the five senses will be included. I think there was someone who asked that
Mhm.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see a
Oh,
few people are talking about their experiences with it of their daughter using this technique since they were
yeah.
7 to calm herself before bedtime. Whenever she feels anxious or fearful, she does that technique. Um, Teaching it to the clients to manage anxiety attacks. Yeah, having even like listing, so the practice of listing things. So if you have a favorite kind of animal, I know I automatically think of the show Atypical, and there is the main character is autistic,
Yeah.
and whenever he's overwhelmed, he names the different types of penguins, and that's something that helps him kind of focus on another task rather than the one that is causing him anxiety.
Yeah.
So all this information will be, this exact slide will be available to you, no worries at all. But this does remind me there was another poll I wanted to do about the techniques, because I wasn't seeing too many questions or anything, but we do have a poll of if you could see yourself using 3 or more of those techniques or sharing it with someone else. So that's just a quick poll we want to do just to gauge if that was helpful for us to walk through those different practices, if you learned anything new, if it would be something you could actually integrate and is practical for your life. Okay. Oh wow, 100% are saying yes, absolutely. Okay. Well, I was nervous. Um, Great. Well, I'm glad that I asked. So thank you so much. Okay, I'm gonna end the poll. And that's so you can see. Oh, one person said not really, maybe one or two. One or two is fine. I'm good with one or two. Okay. There's also other examples in the chat of like seeing it in a movie where a particular character is having a panic attack. Yeah, there's a lot of different, I'm glad that's being represented in other areas as well. So the next practice that we'll do is the diaphragmatic or belly breathing. You can think of it in any way. So again, we'll start to set this up. So if you're sitting in a chair, maybe sitting all the way in the back of the chair or sitting all the way in the front, so your feet are planted on the ground. Think about having a straight, long spine from the base that connects with the chair all the way up to the top of the head. Maybe you bring your shoulders up to your ears and bring them down, maybe roll them out. Find a good position for your back, for your hands. Maybe you rest your hands. Again, you have the option of resting the right hand on your chest, left hand underneath your rib cage, and start to first bring just awareness to your breath. Maybe you notice the texture, maybe you notice you're breathing very deep or very shallow. Just notice your natural breath. Don't try to control it or change it, just bring awareness to it. Maybe you start to notice the sensation of the feet touching the ground, where the legs connect to the chair. Maybe you choose to close your eyes or you let your gaze just soften. It might be helpful to have your eyes open because I'll have you look at something on the screen. So maybe keep your eyes open. And so, with your hands where they are, or they can be rested on your legs or on the chair arms, you can start to follow the guide on the screen. So you'll see the words will highlight in white. So right now it's on breathe in. So you'll breathe in for 4 seconds, you'll hold it at the top and exhale. Some people get anxious holding the breath. So you can skip that part and go straight to breathing out, or you can experiment with slowly integrating it in. So maybe you don't hold each time, maybe you breathe in, breathe out, and then you extend the out. So you can kind of do different variations. So we'll just do this. We'll go through the entire box. It's also called box breathing for this particular scenario. 3 times. Maybe we'll do 4 times. So 4 and 4. So the next time it gets to breathe in, we'll start, and I'm not sure if it's synced up on your screen, but it's about to go to breathe in. Okay, so breathe in through the nose, hold it at the top, breathe out through the mouth. Maybe as you breathe out, you're noticing different sensations, a release in the shoulder blades, in the neck. Again, breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold, breathe in through the nose, hold, breathe out through the mouth, hold. Maybe you continue to breathe out. In, last time, hold, breathe out the mouth, hold. And then you can bring your breathing back to your natural rhythm. Just notice, so we'll do another poll here just to see how people felt about the belly breathing. Again, maybe you notice the fall and rise as your hand was on your stomach or below your rib cage. Something that kids do, they call it like cooling down the pizza. So they say like, oh, pretend like you're cooling down the pizza, like you're blowing the pizza to make it cold, to cool it down. That can be another like breathing exercise of something you can tell them when they're breathing out is cool the pizza. All right, inhale, cool the pizza. So that's something that you can do too. So 87% of people saying, yeah, they totally do it again. A few people, it's not for them. Again, no shame, totally fine. That might not be your cup of tea. That's okay. And then you might find that you have to adjust it to best suit you. And I know when I first did diaphragmatic breathing, I like was a big chest breather. Like I didn't even know it until I did this exercise. And I was like, wait, I'm not feeling my stomach move at all. Like it was very much like shallow breath. And I was also like used to holding my breath. Sometimes survivors like, you know, hold their breath when they're nervous or just have developed that for whatever reason. And that can help to reconnect and develop a different relationship with the breath as well. Um, some people like the 4-7-8 breath. Yeah, that's sometimes challenging for people who haven't done breath exercises before or breathing exercises. It made some people sleepy, relaxing, focused, maybe blowing balloons. So that can be something too as well. Or blowing bubbles for the deep breathing. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of different ways to integrate this into things that are fun and things that you may do anyway. So thank you for participating in that. We have one more demonstration before we continue to chat about some other things. So Saran's going to introduce a 5-minute meditation and then she'll lead us through the 5-minute. Again, totally optional. Take care of yourself. Do what you need to do during this time, and then we'll continue on with the webinar. So go ahead, Saran.
Okay, we're going to just do this 5-minute meditation, and it is to enhance body movement, stimulate your brain, and deepen divine awareness. For those of you who become very anxious during meditation, any type of quietness in the body, and you're pretty anxious, you could stand up, walk around, and keep your eyes open and just start looking at things in the room that will calm you down. Okay, so we could start, let's see here. And there is a link, a 15-minute guided meditation link that you could check in later. Okay, so sit comfortably in your chair or on the floor. There are some people who like to sit on the floor and cross their legs. I don't know if they want to see the next picture for the meditation piece. Yeah, that's kind of a little more soothing. I don't know. I hope it's not too scary. So just sit in your chair or on the floor comfortably and begin by relaxing your body in your seating position. Close your eyes if you would like. and just relax your body. Inhale a deep breath and exhale slowly. So inhale, deep breath, and slowly exhale. Bring your attention to the present moment, noticing your breath. Inhale soft, deep breaths. Exhale slowly. Let's try it again. Softly inhale and exhale slowly. Relax your muscles in your face and release any tension it's holding on to. So for your cheeks, just kind of move them around. We carry stress in our forehead. Just allow your eyes to relax and to release the tension it's holding on to. Bring softness to your face. Lower your chin and roll your neck from left to right 3 times. Roll your neck from right to left 3 times. Roll your shoulders back. Roll them forward. Let's try that again. Roll your shoulders back and roll them forward. Bring attention to the present moment, noticing your breathing. Inhale soft, deep breaths and exhale slowly. Bring awareness to your body sensations in your back, whatever you're feeling in your back, arms, stomach, fingers, legs, feet, and toes. Allow yourself to feel those sensations. Inhale, soft breath. Exhale slowly. When your thoughts move away from the present moment, resist struggling with them. Just notice your thoughts without judgment and gently return your breathing. Just return back to your breathing. Softly inhale and exhale slowly. As we come to the end of our meditation, you can open your eyes. I just want to leave this with you. Be kind to yourself and greet each day with gratitude, joy, and peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So we'll take a moment here. I know we have a lot of questions, so we'll get to those hopefully soon. In the chat, someone said it encourages nap taking. And definitely, so that might be something you do before you go to bed if you struggle to fall asleep. So we'll do one last poll. This is the very last poll, I promise. Could you see yourself doing a short seated meditation again? Lots of options for you to select here. And we do have one that's 15 minutes in the chat as well. So we have a few more seconds for this poll. Excellent. So I'll go ahead and end this. So 34% said, yeah, they would do this a few times a week. 23% said, I do this every day. 26%, yes, I do this weekly. Some people would do it as needed. So that's really great to know. Sometimes you can think, oh no, that's definitely not for me. Maybe you try it and you think, okay, maybe I could get through 5 minutes. 5 minutes is doable. And for others, they're like, oh, I want to do this for 20 minutes. So it's definitely very individual and zero judgment on whatever your answer to that poll was. So a little bit more information on when to use mindfulness, and then we'll talk a little bit more about considerations for children. So one thing that we'll talk about is for the when. It really depends. There's no blanket statement for all survivors of, encourage them to use mindfulness in the moment when something traumatic is happening. That might not be accessible for people. But maybe when we talked about emotional safety planning, which if you're interested in that recording is linked on our YouTube channel. Subscribe if you haven't, mini plug for that. But in our emotional safety planning webinar, we talked about having kind of like a ritual or routine or something after something has happened or after maybe you have a traumatic response to something of that you can practice doing. And I kind of gave the metaphor of why we do fire drills, right? So when something traumatic happens, or in that case, if the fire does happen, kind of what you are practicing your body to do in that drill is kind of what your go-to will be. Your body will automatically start to engage in that activity. And so a part of that could be, okay, I'll list all of these favorite things of mine, or I'll count to this number, or I will, do my 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 senses technique, or I'll engage in the 5-finger breathing. Or I'll read a part of a book. I brought some books and I'll include it again in the PowerPoint, so don't worry if you don't get all of them, but sometimes I just read through this. This is the little book of mindfulness, and it just has some little things throughout. This is like a 5-minute exercise that you can do, so that's something that can be a part of your routine. You could read a little bit. This is a book, Moving Inward. It's all about meditation. This one is about healing, the act of radical self-care. And then I also like The Body Keeps the Score too. I don't know if I would do that. If I were to read that right after I'm stressed. But that could be something just to learn more about more of the science behind these mind-body connection techniques. But again, it can be after, it can be during to help maybe prevent dissociation or whatever your goals are in that area. It can be incorporated in that way. But as far as, who may benefit, so these are some things, if you or someone kind of talks about these things, if they feel like they're on autopilot, where they're just kind of going through the motions every day, they're not really doing things with intentionality. They are just like, oh, my body knows how to do this thing. I'm just going to go and do that. And I'm not really present with it. Maybe you don't understand why you feel a certain way, or you feel stuck in your head. You feel like you're constantly overwhelmed with things that are going on. Maybe you're rushing through your meals. That can be an indicator too of when's the last time I practiced mindfulness. Constantly exhausted. Maybe you eat your food in a trance, you're not even tasting it. I've definitely been there. Maybe your anger's on the rise, you're finding that you're like very irritable. Maybe you're feeling distracted when you're communicating with others. I've definitely had those times where I've been in meetings and I'm like, can you repeat that again? Because I heard words, but I did not register what they meant together. And that can be an indicator of, how can I be present in this moment? What is preventing me from being present in this moment? How can I pay attention to that so I can refocus on the task at hand? So those are some indicators of it may be helpful. And yes, our YouTube channel is Women's Advocates, and I'll send the direct link for that as well too. There's also another plug in the chat that wasn't sent to all attendees. So again, if you're sending a resource, please send it to all attendees and panelists. But it's called The Daily Shine. It's a free podcast. And it has helpful guided mindfulness and meditations. Most are under 10 minutes. And they also used it to wrap up a survivor support group and had positive feedback from that. So great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay. So lastly here, we're almost wrapped up with the webinar here. Considerations for children. Again, there's a bajillion links on the screen with 25 fun mindfulness activities and 11 ways to teach mindfulness to kids. So some techniques, some suggestions are, using language and words, that the kids can connect to, making a game out of it. Something that's really common is creating a calm corner or a safe space for kids to go to, making it a routine. There's things, calling it the feeling exercise, the seeing game, ocean breathing, the power of listening, all those different things. So I'll include this link that too if you want to check that out. And then the last thing I'll note, just for kids, there's this thing called the mindful jar. So if you get like a clear jar, maybe like a mason jar, you fill it kind of like this, fill it almost all the way with water. And then you add a big spoonful of glitter glue or just glue or glitter in the jar, put the lid on, shake it up, make it swirl. And you kind of say this script of, imagine that the glitter is like your thoughts when you're stressed, mad, or upset. See how they whirl around and make it really hard to see clearly. That's why it's so easy to make, in this situation, they say silly decisions when you're upset because you're not thinking clearly. Don't worry, this is normal and it happens to all of us. Yep, grown-ups too. And then they say, now watch what happens when you're still for a couple moments. Keep watching. See how the glitter starts to settle and the water clears. Your mind works the same way. When you're calm for a little while, your thoughts start to settle and you start to see things much clearer. Deep breaths during this calming process can help us settle when we feel a lot of emotions. So that's like another activity too that you can do with kids to help demonstrate the mind. Okay, so in the last few minutes here, we're talking about integrating it into our daily life. So these are some tips for integrating it from moment to moment. There's this quote from John Kabat-Zinn about mindfulness is not really about sitting in the full lotus, pretending you're a statue in the British Museum. Simply put, mindfulness is moment to moment awareness, right? So again, we talked a lot about these different ones. So there's over 50 different suggestions in those links. I'll let you explore those if you're interested. But we'll leave off with Saran kind of talking about integrating it, particularly for survivors, and then maybe some suggestions for service providers too. And then if anyone has any other things that they want to offer from either of those perspectives, you can definitely add those in the chat too.
Okay, I'll try to go pretty quick. I'm going to skip some of them, but just read over them. Okay, so for survivors, the first one is practicing shifting thoughts to the present moment. What's really important with this is when thoughts wander, when you're in a state of meditation or just calmness, and your thoughts wanders, it's from the energy in your body that has not yet calmed down. Bringing awareness to breathing helps to settle down wandering energy by sending messages to the brain to calm the body down. So that's one of the things for survivors. Just when you're very tense, when things are out of whack, to calm things down. And I wanted to actually make a comment about for children. Rather than telling children to stop, behave, sit down, be still, respond to their behavior with a time of saying with its time to practice your breathing. Rather than saying, get over there, sit down, just say gently, it's time to practice your breathing. I think it's really important to teach children how to breathe to regulate their bodies. And both could be in sync, really, their behavior, understanding their behavior, as well as you managing the system. Paying attention to sensations during everyday activities is really huge. It's not only paying attention to my breathing, but my breathing is important when I'm in particular situations. So, really being mindful of sensations that you're feeling in your body and just breathe through those experiences. Finding quotes, and I really believe in journaling. I believe in externalizing your necessary or negatively driven thoughts or just feelings of uncalmness. Just to journal it any type of way that you can externalize really helps not to keep them in your body. Daily rituals and practicing, just practicing things that will help you to calm your body, and that could be devotional reading. That could just be sitting and massaging your hand, massaging your feet, just a state of being. Mm. For survivors, I think that whatever you do, make sure you're very mindful of it and you're really into what is happening to you in your body. And always, I will say this over and over, whatever your body is asking for at that time to help it to calm down, allow it to happen. For service providers, mindful scheduling meetings, being very mindful in doing that, taking time for you before and after meetings. There's times you just have to pause, whatever it is that you need for your body to do that in in that time. If it's to where I just need to settle down, I need to light a candle, I need to relax my body by thinking of something pleasant, I need to read an affirmation, whatever it is, to give yourself time to pause between scheduling meetings with clients. And just having the daily mindfulness routine, I think, is very helpful for providers in understanding mindfulness. When your energy is calm, when others come to meet with you, that energy really transforms the room and it really helps with body, mind, and spirit. So, for both, um, I think gratitude is great. I'll repeat it often. Always find ways to allow your body to feel and express gratitude.
Thank you, Sarah.
Mhm.
I'm trying to get through some of the questions. I'm just typing in the answers.
Oh,
So if you've asked a question, maybe go to the answered and see if I've answered it. Because I've typed a few answers just so people know if they're not checking.
oh,
But thank you so much for talking about integrating into our daily lives. We have a list of more resources here, and I'll go through the chat and make sure I add more resources that people mentioned. But these are some that we compiled right away. And then these are a lot on meditation. So if you're interested in meditation, there's a lot of resources out there to get started. And again, 1 minute meditation you can start with. Again, no pressure though if it's not for you. And then lastly, connect with us. So you can email me at outreach@wadvocates.org. Make sure to follow us on social media. We post a lot of updates and some cool resources. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Check out our website, save our crisis resource line in your phone so you have easy access if it's safe for you to do so. And then lastly, let us know what you think of the webinar. So I'm sending in the survey. It should automatically pop up when you close out of the webinar. So please let us know what you liked, what you hope to see in the future, what you didn't like. Let us know so we can continue to improve. And then this is some information if you do want a certificate of attendance. Send us an email. Make sure you include your first and last name as it should be displayed on your certificate. And we'll send out the PDF of the slides and everything afterward. Keep an eye out for other webinars. We hope to see you next week. We're talking about emotional safety for children. That's happening on Monday at 10 a.m. So feel free to um, sign up, register for that as well. So I'll hang out here for a few more minutes and answer some questions that come up, but I just wanted to thank you all so much for being here and spending some time. We hope you're leaving with some resources, some more information, even if it's just some reminders of things you already knew. But thank you for being here, and we hope to see you again.
And I as well thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure.
One thing that I did want to say kind of in the chat as well, there was a specific question in the Q&A about how to reach out for mental health support and how to go about that. So I'm going to include a link in the chat. And that is a great start for how to find, mental health support for yourself. And you can also reach out to Saran. She is a licensed mental health therapist, and she can help connect you to services if you're having trouble doing so. But just know you deserve to be listened to and to be believed and supported. And I'm sorry some people have expressed having negative experiences with healthcare workers when trying to seek mental health support. So just wanted to remind you all of that. So this is being recorded. You'll get the recording. You'll get the PowerPoint, I promise. So thank you so much. We hope that you'll join us in the future. I'm going to stop the recording.